As we've been talking about the process of urine formation, we saw how the kidney was involved with water balance and electrolyte balance, as in minerals, and pH balance. Let's take a closer look at these things. So we're going to be reviewing stuff we already learned about, but putting it in perspective of water, electrolyte, and pH balance. We know that we take in water through food and through drink. And we put out water too. The output of water happens through urine, feces, sweat, and exhalation. But how does the nervous system and endocrine system help to regulate water content in the body by regulating kidney function? We already know this, right? We know that the nervous system and the endocrine system can both act as an antidiuretic. The sympathetic nervous system is going to act like an antidiuretic, meaning it is going to lower the process of urine formation. And it does this by sending signals to the kidneys, specifically to the afferent arterioles, causing the afferent arterioles to constrict, which means we'll have a lower pressure in the glomerulus, we'll lower the GFR, and that will mean we will make less urine. Antidiuretic hormone has antidiuretic in its name. The hypothalamus will tell the pituitary to release antidiuretic hormone when the hypothalamus detects low water volume or high osmolarity in the bloodstream. An antidiuretic hormone tells the kidneys to put more aquaporins in the renal tubule cells, which causes water reabsorption, which will decrease urine output. Aldosterone is released from the adrenal glands, and aldosterone will tell the nephron tubules to increase sodium reabsorption, and water will follow the sodium. And by increasing water retention in the blood, we will decrease urine volume. Don't forget that aldosterone can be activated by angiotensin II, which can be activated by renin, and we know that the sympathetic nervous system can also cause the release of renin from the juxtaglomerular cells. All of that was review. I didn't tell you anything new right there. But we haven't talked specifically about dehydration and thirst, so let's take a look at that. Thirst occurs when blood osmolarity is high, meaning there's a high solute concentration in the blood. And this typically occurs when the water concentration is low. A lot of times it's not the solute concentration itself that's changing. It's the water concentration that's changing. And if the water concentration gets lower, it effectually causes the solute concentration to become higher. We can detect this by using chemoreceptors in the hypothalamus. So these chemoreceptors in the hypothalamus can detect the chemical composition of blood. And when that high solute concentration is detected, the hypothalamus will send signals to the cerebral cortex, which will make you consciously aware of your thirst, and you'll start doing water-seeking behaviors. The hypothalamus will also cause the pituitary gland to release antidiuretic hormone, which will help us to save water out of that tubular fluid. And the hypothalamus will tell the salivary glands to stop secreting, which causes dry mouth, which is another way to tell us you should probably seek out some water. Dehydration occurs when there's an imbalance between water intake and water output. And this can be caused by different situations. Sometimes it's caused by diuretics. Alcohol can be a diuretic because it inhibits antidiuretic hormone release. Caffeine can be a diuretic because it causes dilation of the afferent arteriole and it decreases sodium reabsorption. Both of these things will increase the glomerular filtration rate and increase urine output. And certain drugs can also act as a diuretic. And then there's various other things that can result in excessive water loss, like when it's very hot out and we're producing a lot of sweat. Electrolytes are charged substances, or ions. We need a proper balance of electrolytes in order to maintain the electrical functions of cells. So basically, any cell that needs to conduct an action potential, like neurons or cardiac muscle cells or skeletal muscle cells, these things are going to be sensitive to electrolytes. Electrolyte balance is also important for water balance because we know that if we change the electrolyte concentration in the blood, That can change the blood osmolarity, and that can cause changes with water balance. Of course, we take in electrolytes through food and drink, and the output of electrolytes is going to occur through urine, feces, and sweat. When we're maintaining proper electrolyte balance, that means we're maintaining electrolytes in their proper locations. We have two basic overall locations in the body where we keep fluids and hence electrolytes. And that would be the intracellular compartment and the extracellular compartment. The intracellular compartment is what it sounds like. It's talking about the fluid inside of cells. The extracellular compartment is also what it sounds like. It's talking about the fluid outside of cells. We have several different places where we have extracellular compartments that are significant, such as blood plasma, cerebrospinal fluid, and interstitial fluid. So which electrolytes, which ions are located where? A little handy way to remember this is one nervous, harassed calico cat is majorly kangaroo phobic. If you listen to my lectures on neural activity, I use one nervous calico cat is kangaroo phobic to help us to learn which ions are located where in terms of the ions that are really important for neural activity. But here we're adding in harassed and majorly. So each of the first letters of each of those words corresponds to something. So the one is for outside, for example. So outside of cells, that's our extracellular compartment, we're going to find sodium, HCO3-, which is bicarbonate, calcium, and chloride. Inside of cells, in the intracellular compartment, we're going to find magnesium, potassium, and proteins. Acid-base balance, or pH balance, is very important in the body. If pH is too high or too low, it can cause proteins in DNA to denature. And when those things denature, they don't work. And when they don't work, the body doesn't work either. Most pH issues are said to be of metabolic or respiratory origin. So metabolic is referring really to any pH problems that are not caused by the respiratory system. And these pH problems are often caused by metabolism problems. When we say we have a pH imbalance of metabolic origin, it's really just kind of referring to any problems with pH that are not caused by the respiratory system. Maybe there's a lot of vomiting going on, which is causing a loss of hydrochloric acid, and this can cause alkalosis. So there's a lot of different ways this can happen. But we can also have issues with pH that are of respiratory origin, which we've talked about in the respiratory system. Let's take a look at what happens when we see conditions of alkalosis or acidosis in the body. With alkalosis, the blood pH is too high. If the pH is too high, one of the problems can be that we have too much bicarbonate. So we can stop reabsorbing bicarbonate at the level of the kidney. We can also reduce the rate that we're secreting hydrogen ions. And by reducing secretion of hydrogen ions, we'll retain those hydrogen ions in the blood, helping the lower pH back to normal. The respiratory system can correct for alkalosis by slowing the rate and depth of breathing. This will help us to retain carbon dioxide, which will essentially be like helping us to retain acid, again, lowering the pH back to normal. If the body's experiencing acidosis, that means the blood pH is too low. And we can basically use the kidneys in the opposite way that we did for alkalosis. We're going to make changes to reabsorption and secretion. We are going to exchange sodium for hydrogen ions. In other words, we're going to reabsorb sodium for secretion of hydrogen ions. If we secrete hydrogen ions, we're putting acids into what will eventually become urine, and we're getting those acids out of the body. We can also exchange bicarbonate for chloride ions. And by doing this, we're reabsorbing the bicarbonate, and that bicarbonate will help to buffer any acids in the bloodstream. Changes in the respiratory system can also correct for acidosis. If we increase the rate and depth of breathing, that means we'll be exhaling more carbon dioxide, which means we'll be getting rid of more acid, and that will help to correct for the acidosis too.